Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Sign up with the code SGPN. Get 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's about Edge Boost. Reminder that you can earn $70 per month on your sports gambling transactions with EdgeBoost.bet. Promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leading different picks and props. Try it out for free for a week. And a reminder, Rhythm's also giving away a $250 future and throwing a March Madness party. Go to sportsbook.com/party for details. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Sunday morning, roughly February 23rd, roughly 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to break down the final in Rio. So going to be a short episode, only one match to preview. Going to preview the Baez and Mueller match taking place in the East Coast at around 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Either way, though, point is before we get into that, do want to recap what happened in the last episode for the final that we ended up seeing in what was a pretty entertaining match between Rublev and Draper in Doha. So to recap what happened in the last episode, overall a great episode for us. Starting off with the lock and dog picks, ended up having a nice sweep for the lock. We had the Draper-Rublev first four game score, 2-2 at -135. Never in doubt, no break points, pretty straightforward there. In fact, they ended up holding, I believe, the first, it was either 11 or 10 straight games to start, and then eventually Rublev got the break to win the first at 7-5. Before the lock, never in doubt, no break points, nice and easy holds all the way around. So nice win for the lock. For the dog, nice win as well. So we had Rublev money line at even money as he got the job done there in 3. Still didn't think Draper should have been favored, and Rublev looked like the better player for most of the match. Draper used a lot of energy to come back in the second set, or at least to force a third set, and then he ran out of gas, and you saw Rublev really just hit the afterburners in the third set. I think he was up 5-0 in the third set, so it was over pretty quickly. Either way, though, point is, ended up seeing Rublev get the job done for us as he did win his Doha title for the second time. So I believe that's the first event he's ever won twice on the ATP Tour, so congrats to him. Definitely nice to see after he was in, I'd say, free fall for the last couple of months, or at least he was having some, I'd say, mental breakdown issues. He had a little bit of a flare-up, though, in the end of the second set, but then he was able to regroup, and he got the job done there convincingly in the third. But overall, a nice overall sweep for us as we ended up winning the lock and dog picks. Been a great start to the year. Hopefully we'll keep it rolling here for the Sunday match. Now, do want to quickly just point out some of the stats for the actual final. So Rublev served very well, 10 aces, 0 double faults, so he definitely did the best at actually limiting his mistakes. He was able to win roughly 10% more on the first serve. He won 12% more on the second serve. Draper really did not return that well over the course of the match. He only forced 3 breakpoints in the entire match, only broke once, and he ended up seeing Rublev force 8 breakpoint chances. He broke 3 times. So either way, Rublev did a better job. When you win the first serve percentage and the second serve percentage, in terms of points won, you're going to win, and that's what happened. It's a nice win there for Rublev, and we saw Draper look good for most of the event. However, I mentioned before, he had a pretty weak draw when you compare the two of them, and Draper's durability and his fitness has been a concern over his career, and it felt like he completely just ran out of gas down the stretch. So Draper, I don't know what he's going to have to do to actually fix the, I'd say, common issue of his durability and his fitness, because he's basically in the top 10 at this point, top 15 already. And yet, we know that he made a semi in the U.S. Open last year, so it's not like it's panic mode time. But when you're looking at the main issues he's had on tour, the main issues for me are conditioning. And I do wonder if that's maybe a dietary thing, if that's just an exercise thing. But either way, I do think that's what Draper's going to have to work on if he wants to push through and maybe make the top 10 or the top 5 someday. I know, for example, Djokovic had some issues early in his career. Then he cut out gluten, and then, of course, the rest was history. I do wonder if Draper is going to try to experiment with either a different workout plan or maybe a nutritionist or something, because I feel like what he's doing right now is kind of a ticking time bomb approach, because, yes, I understand he's still been successful. He won a title or 2 last year. I get all that. But when you're looking at where the issues lie, it's usually in his body falling apart over the course of long tournament runs, and as a result, that ends up really costing him a couple of titles he could potentially win. So I do wonder if Draper's going to make some adjustments to that in the future, but either way, point is, wanted to mention that as I felt like he completely just was flat the entire third set. I thought he was exhausted, felt like Rublev hit a gear, and it felt like Draper's level fell off a cliff. I mean, to go through the actual third set stats here, Draper only won one second serve point the entire set. One. He was 1 of 7. So when the first serve wasn't really landing, he kind of fell apart there. And it just felt like he really just could not keep up with Rublev over the course of that third. But either way, nice for us as we ended up winning the lock and the dog. We didn't have an outright for Rublev, so either way, point is no outright win there, but still a nice lock and dog sweep nonetheless. Now, before we get into the actual preview of the matches, or I should say the final in Rio, and before we recap what happened in the semis on Saturday, I want to remind you once again that you can show support for the show, but like, subscribe. You need to. Reminder, you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. So we actually jumped to decent amount of subscribers over the last couple of days. Think we are 4 away from 800, I think. I'm hoping that we can get to, once again, 800 by the end of the month. Have a couple days to do so, but hopefully you can help us do that by recommending the show to others or just by hitting the like and subscribe button to help the show grow. Also, a reminder, though, podcast is also available on Spotify or Apple. I do edit the YouTube show and post it on Spotify or Apple. So if you do listen to it audio only, that's fine too. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, different colors, all comfortable, all affordable. So I recommend getting yourself something. And a reminder that we do have a great promo for the merch store, because if you gear up for March with Merch Madness, promo code MADNESS for 20% off in the SGPN store. Get it now before the promo code is done. And a reminder, if you want to get yourself some Tennis Game Podcast merch, don't forget to use code MADNESS at checkout for 20% off anything in the store. Anyway, getting into the actual recap of what happened in the Saturday matches in Rio. You had two pretty interesting semifinals because both those matches went to a deciding set. However, the Baez match was very, very weird. Baez lost the first set to Carabelli and then buried him. Carabelli won the first set 6-3, and you figured, okay, Baez entered the match at around minus 300. You figured, okay, maybe we'd get a continued Cinderella story from the lucky loser in Carabelli, and then he absolutely hit a wall because Baez won the next two sets 6-1. So it just felt like Carabelli ran out of gas. And Baez was good enough to just wear Ugo Carabelli down en route to a pretty straightforward 3-set win. Once again, you win the next two sets 6-1, 6-1. You can't really even say Carabelli threatened at any point after winning the first set, but Baez found his groove. He dominated and then eventually did make it back to his second straight final in Rio after winning the title last year. As for the other matchup, that was the more entertaining one. You had Comesaña taking on Moore. Comesaña had the upset victory against Zverev, and you saw Moore, who's been very sharp against the competition so far in the event, as he was able to get by the likes of Fonseca in the first round, had a very nice win against Cerundolo the day prior. Comesaña, though, was a Cinderella story, playing great tennis, though. I like his game. I know we backed him a couple times in, I believe it was Wimbledon. We actually took him to win a set against Musetti, I think, but either way, point is, I think he's a solid player. And you saw Moore get the job done. Was it easy? No. The end of the first set was an absolute breakfest, as it felt like Moore should have won the first set about 5 times, but eventually did convert as he got the job done there, 7-5. Then ended up seeing Comesaña come back and win the second set in a tie-break 7-6, and then eventually Moore did get the break in the third, and he held on to win that 1-6-3. Overall, the match took about 3 hours. Fun match. Moore did get the break in the 3-4 game and served it out for the win. But for the overall match, a lot of drama, a lot of high-quality shot making, and it felt like the match was definitely in the balance for most of the way through before Moore found an opening, converted, and then eventually did hold out to win the match. Moore's had himself a great year. He's going to be in the top 50, I believe, at the end of the week. He already won a title this year, so nice job by him. That was on hard court as well, and now he's thriving on clay. So overall, a very good year for Moore, and we'll see how he does for the rest of the season, especially for the immediate future in the final, as he ends up taking on Baez in the final on Sunday. But overall, Moore's been great. You're looking at Baez, who's played well too. Baez had a pretty easy path. I'll get into that a bit more in detail when I break down the actual match. But for the outrights, a reminder, even though we did not win an outright in Doha, we do have an outright alive in Rio, because we have the defending champion. We have Baez to win the event at 14-1. So we do have an outright, a chance to keep our outright streak alive. Baez 14-1. So if you do want to hedge it, you can get Mueller at plus money. You can get that at around plus 150. But point is, we do have an outright who's still alive. He's favored. Hopefully Baez can close it out for the sake of the 14-1 shot. Anyway, before we get into the actual preview in depth of the final in Rio, I want to remind once again that we are brought to you by EdgeBoost, because EdgeBoost is the premier Visa debit card. For bettors, you can also use it to avoid the hassle of having your card denied. Sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, racetrack, and casino. You'd also earn a bunch of cashback rewards, $10 per month in cashback rewards when using the cashback card or the Edge Boost card to get cashback rewards. And a reminder, your money's safe as the card's FDIC insured. You'd also use it with no credit checks and it's completely free. Sign up today, promo code SGPN to get better cashback rewards and instant security status. ADVERTISE, promo code SGPN. ADVERTISE, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to MyBookie. MyBookie is the place to bet on every sport. They have props in every game. Live dealer casino. MyBookie accept customers from a ton of locations. And a reminder, you can use a deposit in lightning fast payouts with crypto. And a reminder, you can also head to mybookie.ag with the promo code SGPN so you get 100% deposit match up to $1,000 and a $10 casino chip. MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished recapping what happened in the semis and recapping our sweep from the final in Doha. Now it's time to move on into the actual preview of the final in Rio between Baez and Moore. So for the actual matchup, Baez is minus 170, Moore's plus 150. For the spread, you have minus 2.5 for Baez, plus 2.5 for Moore. The over-under in games is set at 22.5 or 21.5 at around minus 135, minus 140 if you do shop around. For the spread, alternate-wise, you can get Baez minus 1.5 games at minus 130, Moore plus 1.5 games at even money. For the set spread, the over 2.5 sets around plus 130 or so. For the, that's the total sets, I mean. For the set spread, you get Baez in straight sets at plus 155. You can get Moore to win in straight sets at plus 325. No head-to-head history. Said before, Moore did win a title earlier this season, where Baez is looking for his first title this year. Baez, we know, though, is a clay specialist, and this is where he thrives because he won the title here last year in Rio. So for the actual path of both players, once again, no head-to-head history, so can't really dive into that. Now, for the path for Moore, good overall run. I know Comesaña was a bit of a lucky draw there for the semis, but Comesaña was in great form, so not going to fully roast the competition for that one. But he was able to beat Fonseca in the first round, fresh off the title, and Fonseca, of course, had the crowd advantage being in Brazil. Beat him in straight sets, beat Echeverry in straight sets. We know he can be a tough player on clay as well. Beat Cerundolo, who made the final the previous week, losing to Fonseca. Good clay win there, too, and beat Comesaña in 3 sets. Overall, Moore's been great. I feel like there's no other way around it. He's been very consistent. He's been very dialed in on both the forehand, backhand, even the serve, which is vulnerable. It's been good enough when needed to be, and I feel like that's what you kind of ask for a clay guy. But the point is, you are looking at Moore dropping 1 set in the entire event, beating the likes of Fonseca, beating Echeverry, beating Cerundolo. A very impressive run so far. For Baez, that's why we took him. Besides being defending champion, we thought the path was pretty weak, with the exception of the Navone match in the second round. But he ended up having a match against Borchuga in the first round, who I believe was a qualifier. Wasn't really scared there. Beat Navone in 3. Beat Sang in the quarters, who got injured and had to once again fight through it. Got his ass kicked there in the second set, but he got the job done there against Sang. Then he ended up beating a lucky loser, Ugo Carabelli, in the semis in 3 sets. So even though Comesaña was a relatively, I'd say, nice draw for Moore in hindsight, definitely harder than Ugo Carabelli, who was a lucky loser, who wasn't really that great. And it felt like Baez really just wore him out as the match went on, because he ended up winning the next 2 sets, or the final 2 sets, 6-1, 6-1. So Baez, though, has played easy competition, but he's also defending champion, so you can make an argument that he should be favored in this spot. Now, for the actual price, I think based on the competition and based on the form, I think Moore's quite live, actually, to get the job done here. I understand that Baez has played less overall tennis over the last day because he was able to beat Sang convincingly, and he was able to beat Carabelli in a pretty straightforward 3 sets. At least the last 2 sets were. I mean, by comparison, based on time on court, that match against Carabelli took about, I think it was around 2 hours. It took about 1 hour and 45. And you're looking at the matchup that Moore had against Comesaña. That took about 2:55. So Baez on the court for an hour or less yesterday. We'll see if that plays a factor in the match today. Not to mention the fact that Moore finished his match very late because he was the late match. So he might have had a less actual sleep entering this match. But for the sake of form, I think Moore is looked like the, in my opinion, better player. And I do think that Moore has faced off against better players over the course of his run to the final. So for the actual value, I actually don't mind Moore in this one. I think plus 150 is pretty high. I think Baez might win. Not going to say that I'd be shocked if he lost, but I think the minus 170 is very steep. I'd probably have Baez at like minus 125, minus 130. I think he should be favored after Moore played a bunch of tennis yesterday, but I do think that 170 is pretty high for a minus, and I do think that plus 150 has a lot of value on that. I don't mind Moore plus the games, though, plus 2.5. Think he can hang in there, make the match competitive. Maybe it goes 3, and you get a marathon on your hands. That's kind of where I'm going based on my overall mental, I'd say, prediction and breakdown of the match. I think you're going to see a war between the two of them. I think that you might see one set maybe lopsided, then the other guy comes back. But Baez has been to a third set in 2 of the last 3 matches, so he has been vulnerable to some degree. And you're looking at Moore, who's only dropped 1 set, but it was in the last round, and we saw him play for about 3 hours. So there was a chance Moore maybe loses a set to conserve energy at some point in the match. Maybe Baez has a no-show for the first set, like he did against Carabelli in the match in the semis. But I think you're looking at what should be a fun matchup. I see a question in the comment section, do I like the over in the match? I don't mind it at 21.5 minus 130. The question is, do you think you can actually get over that game total if it does end in straight sets? I think you can. It might be difficult, though, because neither guy is a great server. So you might see a bunch of breaks. I believe the actual tie break in a set is around like plus 180, give or take. So I feel like if you want to go for the over in games, you can still get there. If it ends in straight sets, I think it would get there, obviously, if it goes to 3. And I feel like the value might be better for 3 sets. How's it going, Roby? Nice to see you, too. Point is, though, for the match, I am going to go with Mueller for value. I think the plus 150 price is too high. Plus 2.5 games, I don't mind. I think you're looking at a better play, in my opinion, on the over if you want to go for the games or the sets. But I see a close matchup. I think it comes down to the wire. If you want my actual pick to win the match, I will go with Mueller in 3. Of course, I hope I'm wrong, because I am hoping that Baez wins for the 14-1 shot for the outright. But I think that Mueller is being disrespected here based on price. And the fact that he has already won a title this season, I know that he practiced in the offseason with Sinner, and he's definitely praised Sinner for helping him grow his game. It's worked. So Mueller's going to break into the top 50. He's had a great year. And I do think that before this event, Baez was really not playing that well. So I do think that Baez, despite having a good run, I wonder how much of it is a potential fugazi based on the weak competition, where Mueller's beaten some very good competition over the course of multiple rounds. Give me Mueller, get the job done for the value. See Adrian stopping by the way. Nice to see you too. It's early for you, though. It's like 5 a.m., so welcome to the show over there in Arizona. Either way, though, give me Mueller for the value, and I am going to go with the over as well for my thoughts on the matchup. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the actual preview of the final in Rio. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For that, though, remember once again that we are brought to you by Rhythm, because if you want to try out betting models, Rhythm can help you do that, because Rhythm is going to once again, allow you the opportunity to build your own model, type one from the leaderboard, or you could also use one from Rhythm itself. So a couple ways to do it. Rhythm can build you one. You can do it yourself or let the leaderboard do it for you. So a couple ways to actually try out betting models. And a reminder, Rhythm's also hosting an epic March Madness party, and you're all invited. All Rhythm users are invited to the first 4 watch party Wednesday, March 19th at the awesome Stadium Swim at Circa Las Vegas. Spoiler, I'm probably going to be there. So if you want to actually see me in person, you can find me at that party on the 19th there at Circa Swim. They have free drinks, plus you get to hang out with the guys from the Sports Camp Podcast and the College Experience, including me, if you want to see me there. It also gets better. Rhythm is giving away $250 in March Madness futures to one lucky Rhythm user. Just sign up for your 7-day free trial at sgpn.com/rhythm. Once again, come by, use Rhythm to help you fill out your bracket, and maybe you could also make some bets while you're there. A free party, plus a chance at a $250 future bet. Go to sportsgames.com/party. For details, sportsgames.com/party. We're also brought to you by Underdog. A reminder that Underdog Fantasy is the place to actually try to, I'd say, make some money using their Underdog Pick'em, because you can also use different sports in the same entry. You can use the NBA, NHL, college basketball, tennis, etc. And a reminder for the actual promo code with Underdog, if you use the promo code SGPN when you sign up, you can claim a special first time visit offer up to 1K when it's cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Camp Podcast. Finished breaking down the final in Rio between Baez and Mueller. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Starting off for the lock, I am going to go with a prop, so apologies if you have a different line available by you, but I am going to go with it. I like the value. For the lock, I'm going to go with the Aces prop. I know that I've gone to this prop before, haven't done so in a while, but I do think there's some value. I'm going to go with the under 5.5 aces at minus 150. Now, I know it's juicy. Some books have 4.5 at plus money. I don't mind that. Of course, I prefer the 5.5, but it is plus money. If you only have 4.5, I don't mind maybe putting a half unit on that instead, but I do think there's a decent chance that cashes as well. So for Baez's matches on clay this year, there have really been minimal aces. He has really not done a great job of getting aces, with the exception of the Carabelli match yesterday, but the prop is cashed in 9 of Baez's 10 clay matches this season. So he returns well with deep return position. He also is undersized, so he's not the best server. I think you're looking at what should be a pretty underwhelming serving display from both guys. Muller, though, has not done a great job of getting aces. He's had less than 3 aces in 4 of his last 5. So basically, they're daring Baez to get about 4 aces or so in this match. I don't see that happening in this one. Baez had a crazy serving display against Carabelli, who completely ran out of gas there in the 3rd set. I believe Baez had 3 aces in that final set. So once again, you can get there in a couple of ways. Either Baez has a decent serving display, Moore gives you nothing, and it falls in the middle. Both guys stink at serving, and you go under. Or the match ends in straight sets, and there's a potential for I'd say, a smaller amount of games that you expect, which should result in less aces as a whole. But I think you're looking at 5.5 on clay being pretty high of a number for 2 guys that are really not that great at serving. Moore is not really threatened at all on the serve in the event, and Baez has really not done a great job either, with the exception of an exhausted Carabelli as the match went on. I think 5.5 aces is a pretty solid number, once again, at minus 150. If you can't get that, though, 4.5 at plus money, I don't mind. I'd be more careful with it in terms of units, but I think you're looking at what should be a pretty simple break fest, which should result in a pretty small number of aces, a lot of breakpoint chances, and what I think should finish somewhere in the realm of 3 or 4 aces combined. But give me the under for this one as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets. Caesars goes rogue every time on the pricing, and I got to take it. Plus 145 for the over 2.5 sets. Some books have plus 125. So you're giving me an extra 20 cents by shopping around. I like it. I think that Baez is going to have a couple of, I'd say, letdown moments in the match. 2 of his last 3 matches did not in straight sets. Had a letdown set against Fonseca. Not Fonseca, sorry. Against Navone in the 2nd set of the match a couple rounds ago, where he lost that 6-1. Had a no-show in the 1st set against Carabelli in the semifinal matchup. Muller's been great, but I do think that Muller can drop a set as well. We saw him play a lot of tennis yesterday. Saw him lose a set to Comasagna. I think you're looking at what should be a pretty fun battle between 2 guys. Not to mention the fact that I said before, the breaks of serve should be, I'd say, plentiful in this match. The over-under break of serve line is either 5.5 or 6.5. So you should see a bunch of, I'd say, momentum swings over the course of this matchup. Both guys not great at serving. I see a lot of breaks. I see a lot of drama. And I do think that a 3-set thriller is really in the cards for this one. Plus, Moore's history of winning ATP events has been filled with drama. Each of Moore's 2 career ATP title matches did not in straight sets. So Moore has been able to get by in some of these matches, but he doesn't make it easy on himself. Tends to take the opponent into deep waters here in title matches, but I see a good price at 145 market wide, and you are looking at Baez once again dropping a set in 2 of the last 3. Both players not great at serving, and Moore has been involved in a couple of marathons and ATP title matches. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 145 as my dog. So once again, the plays here for the lock and dog for the Rio final. Lock's going to be on the Baez-Muller match under 5.5 aces at minus 150. For the dog, I am going to go with Baez and Muller over 2.5 sets at plus 145. Before we wrap up the show, I want to check out the comment section quickly. I see Dax asked me if I have any thoughts on Santiago or Acapulco. Not going to cover qualifying. That is going to segue into my actual preview for the next episode, because we're going to break down Santiago, Acapulco, and Dubai. We might potentially do one episode for Acapulco by itself if the future odds are not up yet, and they should be, but we will be doing a future episode at some point featuring all 3 events for the upcoming week. So I have nothing for qualifying, but I will have an episode for those 3 events. Besides that, I see Brian enjoying the picks. Thank you. Yeah, there are no kids at Circa. I've been there a couple of times. Definitely less noise when you don't have any kids running around the casino. Matt's think I'm going to be in a robe surrounded by babes. Maybe. Depends if they watch the tennis podcast, because I know that my picks would do well with the babes. But besides that, John mentioned that he likes Muller in this one. Yeah, once again, I think we're on the same page here. I think that you're looking at Muller keeping this interesting. I think 150 is disrespectful. I think Baez can drop a set, and I don't mind the option of Muller keeping the match competitive, or maybe winning or losing, but I think that's enough to once again cash the over for this one. Muller's 2-1, or I should say Muller to win in 3 sets is plus 400. I don't mind that as well, but I am going to go with the safer option for the actual sets instead for the dog. So once again, lock's going to be on the under on 5.5 aces, minus 150. For the dog, we're going to go with the over 2.5 sets of plus 145. For the next episode, mentioned it before, but we are going to be covering Dubai, Santiago, and Acapulco. So we have a couple of hard court events and a clay event to go through next week. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio, find me on the NBA show, find me on the MLB show, find me on the Propcast as well for the MLB season, as I will be doing a prop show with Adam, actually, for the MLB season 3 times a week. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.